Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey is always top shelf. Whether you got your start as a Dynasty veteran, a Millbury survivor, or you were born into the Church of Trotz, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, here are your eclectic hosts, Sean Cuthbert and Christian Arnold.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Tuesday, June 29th, 2021. Coming at you live from the Hockey Night New York studios on Long Island. Another big show coming up for you tonight. Arthur Staple of The Athletic will be joining us to talk about the unfortunate early end to the New York Islanders 2021 campaign. My name is Sean Cuthbert. With me, as always, is this fellow right here, Mr. Christian Arnold.
There we go.
Christian, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm more concerned about how you're doing. Are you okay?
That's fair.
Are you all right?
That's fair.
I didn't reach out to you after the game, but I was thinking about you.
Because you're heartless. Oh, well, you were thinking.
I was working, so.
All right. Well, I guess that's fair. How am I doing? Well, I mean, it's been a few days now, so I'm feeling a bit better. But I got to be honest with you, man. This one stings. It stings more than it did last year. Last year was more like, hey, this is the stepping stone. You know, they got to the conference final. Next year, you know, you hope you get into the cup, obviously, and they get one game further. And we're going to talk all about what went wrong and what happened and everything. But let's just say that it was definitely a heartbreaker. And I'm pretty sure I speak for a lot of you guys out there in Islander country where it still hurts, man. It still hurts.
Oh.
But life goes on.
Yes.
We're going to be fine.
It's beautiful out. Sun's out.
It's beautiful
summer.
out. Yeah.
Get to enjoy the nice weather now.
Yeah. All is not lost.
Yeah.
All is not lost. So, you know, we're going to get through this together. Islander country, there's a lot of interesting stuff coming up this summer. Lou Lamoriello is going to be a very busy man.
Oh, for sure.
But we gotta get into the sponsors real quick before we keep going. So, folks, I want to remind you all that we are proud to be sponsored by Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington. Make sure you head on over for great food, great people, and great service. Check out the menu at BlueLineDeli.com. We're also happy to be sponsored by Ty Technology, a voice-over IP company providing phone services for businesses across the country. If you're tired of dealing with long hold times and the impersonal service of companies like Spectrum, Optimum, and Verizon, give Ty Technology a call at 516-856-7800 for 3 free months of service. And we are happy to be sponsored by Manscaped, the men's below-the-waist grooming champions of the world. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for everywhere you want to get rid of hair. Manscaped just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer, 20% off and free worldwide shipping with promo code HockeyNightNY at Manscaped.com. So we all know what happened. The Isles just fell short. Cup finals once again.
Yes.
I'm repeating myself because it's in the script.
Good. I'm glad we're sticking to the script.
This time, only one went away. One goal away. One giant-ass mistake away. What do you say?
Are you doing okay? Are you actually doing okay?
Yes.
I
Yes.
don't think so.
We're going to get through this. It's just an hour. We're going to make it. It's going to be fine.
I mean, that was, I think, the most horrifically fitting way for the season to end, if that's the way it was going to happen.
Horrifically
poetic, if you will, because of the way the Islanders' power play has played this entire year. And granted, they haven't given up a shorty.
Right,
they haven't given up a shorty all year, but the way the power play has played has been at times really good. You saw it really good during the second round against Boston, and then
or maybe just prior to how that power play ended.
Yeah,
it's looking pretty good.
Well, that was the other thing too. I mean, I tweeted it out, and I think I wrote it in my stories following the game that the ironic thing about all of it was that the power play was generating opportunities, and then it was that mistake where you see 3 guys converge into the corner, and there's no one out. And I understand. And look, that's a bad mistake, no question about it. You leave a guy open, and I know you saw some people tweet out about the alleged too many men on the change there, which I don't think that's the case.
The photo. I'd have to rewatch in context, but I didn't think much of it, at the time. So I don't think we can really rest on that. And they got screwed again.
I know people had put it out there, so I think we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we didn't at least mention that.
Absolutely.
That was out there. I don't think it was the case. I think that in that moment, the screenshot or whatever the case may be, I think just caught it in a spot where it looks like it's possibly too many men on the ice, but it's right in the middle of a change and everything. So, but regardless of that, the Islanders make a crucial error in 3 guys converging into the corner there, giving the Tampa Bay Lightning the opportunity to change, and you have Yanni Gourde come out undetected, basically, and he has all the time in the world to shoot, and that's not a position you want to put yourselves in, even when you're up a man against the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, not only is this team not known for making stupid mistakes like that, but they're up a man, right? So that would have been a bad mistake if it was even strength.
Right.
But they're on the power play. They already have an extra gentleman on the ice. So they did not need 3 guys converging on this one guy on the boards. I mean, you had, what was it, Letty was the defenseman back playing the puck? I
believe so, yeah.
And then you have Bailey coming in the boards. But, like, pick and choose, whether it's Palmieri or Bailey, one of those guys
has to stay out.
Has to hang back.
Can't do that.
And Palmieri kind of drifted off, but it was way too late. He was left in no man's land between Varlamov and the guys on the boards.
Right. I think Palmieri too was the last guy to make the move towards the corner as well. I think Bailey and Letty were the first 2 to converge into the corner, and then Palmieri, which is an interesting situation because Palmieri, obviously he's been, Bailey's a veteran too, but Palmieri is looked at as the veteran guy with experience who's supposed to be able to play in his own end responsibly. That kind of is counterintuitive to what you should be doing in that position if you know the circumstances going on. And Tampa's going to try and take advantage of that.
It's easy to be looking at it from behind the camera and seeing it unfold and be like, what the hell are these guys doing? The only thing I can think of is that they were like, well, we are up a man. They're not going to come, hard on, on this. They're just trying to get the puck deep. They didn't realize that Gourde was coming off the bench, and they figured they could cheat and they could just get the puck away as quickly as possible so they can head back down the ice for another chance in the power play. I have to assume that's where the mindset was. Obviously, it was the absolute incorrect one to have, and somebody just should have played it safe. Just hover and cover that area in the slot, and then you're good. So even if that pass makes it to Gourde, which of course goes through Bailey's legs, I mean, it was a great pass. He just happened to be able to get it to him right in the perfect spot as he's streaking in, and it was a great shot. And it's just that's the killer for me, is that is how they lost this game and ultimately a chance at a taste at the cup on such a poor mistake, such a bad goal. Like, if it had been like your typical Kucherov beautiful setup to point, a goal, you're just like, well, that was going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, you say, I respect that, that's fine. But to go down on such an awful mistake is just, that's going to sit with me for a long time.
Oh, I can tell.
Yeah,
I can tell. And it's frustrating. I think you could tell after the game it was frustrating too for the guys on the ice. They knew they made a mistake.
Oh,
they knew that. You look at the response and the reaction to the game and the loss after everything was said and done, and those guys realized what a big moment they had an opportunity they had missed there because of the circumstances, because of the fact that there's a chance that this core is not going to be together next year. Casey Zizekas, there's a real chance he's not going to be here. There's a real chance Jordan Eberle, Josh Bailey, or Nick Leddy are not here because of the expansion draft. So these are core guys who have been cornerstones for the franchise for the last couple of years especially, but they've been here through a lot of good and a lot of bad times, and everyone knows that this is that was their best opportunity, it seems like, although they're confident they're going to get back there next year.
Yeah, I finally got around to watching those post-game interviews and the exit interview. It took me like a day or two. Like, I couldn't even...
It was rough to watch.
I couldn't touch it.
It was rough. You could tell Matthew Barzal was really upset. And he wasn't upset because he wasn't there. He was upset because a guy like Josh Bailey is going to get to the Cup final.
And you love to hear that. You love to hear that these guys were so supportive of one another and had so much love in that locker room for each other, where you really get a taste of a sense of, just how tight-knit that group was. And throughout the years, you hear them say that. This is a special group. This is a tight-knit group, There's something really special about this locker room. I mean, you look at the answers that Andy Green and Palmieri gave in there, I mean, immediately, I want back. If there's a way, I want back in. Like, it just go. And these are guys who haven't been here for that long. So it's just such a testament to the culture that has been created within that team. And not to say it didn't exist before Lamoriello and Trotz there, because a lot of these character guys were there already, like Martin and Bailey and stuff like that. But to have them all come together now under this, roof of Lamoriello and Trotz, and you heard some guys like Clutterbuck and Martin talk about the way they carry themselves, has had a lot to do with their success and also their cohesiveness as a unit. So, it's nice to see. I mean, and that's the sort of thing that's going to help teams take the next step, even if this year was a baby step, and you hope that they can keep as much of these guys together for next season so they can get back there again. But, we're going to talk about all that stuff.
I don't even think that. I mean, in fairness, I don't necessarily know if it's because of Lamoriello and Trotz. I think they've kind of fostered that family atmosphere that's existed with the Islanders.
Yeah.
And fairness, credit where credit's due. Garth Snow was a similar way. It was about character as much as it was about the skill on the ice. But I think where that camaraderie comes from again is the tightness that the group has from going through a lot of these ups and downs and craziness with this organization before Lou Lamoriello, before John Ledecky and Scott Malkin, before Barry Trotz, kind of going through the Charles Wong, the Jack Capuano years, the Doug Weight years,
coming down from the bottom
and then coming back up. These guys have been through hell and back, so to speak, there in hockey terms. Obviously, not to be a little too dramatic, but they've been through a lot, especially guys like Josh Bailey and Matt Martin and Casey Zizekas. They've been here for more than their fair share of craziness off the ice as well as on the ice.
Yeah, it's true, and it's all culminated in these last few years, which have been, I mean, just from a fan's perspective, it's been just tremendous to watch, especially because of all those rough years that everybody knows all too well. And to come up short again, it's a really tough pill to swallow. It's going to take some time for a lot of people, especially the players, to get that close. I mean that's the thing. You think about how you feel as a fan, but the players to actually be there out in the ice to get that close, to almost have that shot of glory, and to just fall short. I mean, it's got to eat at them for a long time. But hopefully, they come back hungry again. You
could tell it sat with them. It sat with them even a couple days afterwards when they were going through those exit interviews.
Big time.
The emotions were still kind of there, and it's still a little bit raw. And obviously, the focus now is on what's going to happen in the offseason between Casey Zizekas and the Islanders, between the RFA situations with Beauvillier, with Pelech, Michael Del Cole, Ilya Sorokin. They all need new contracts. Plus, is there any chance the Islanders can fix the power play? Is there anyone they can bring in through free agency other than just putting Oliver Wahlstrom, who's been the topic of conversation in the chat since the show started? So,
well, you know what? There's going to be some forced change in personnel, and maybe that's part of what it'll take to get that power play going. Maybe you don't have those same old faces in there. Maybe that makes a little bit of a difference. But
But Kyle Palmieri came in. He was in the same old face. And,
okay.
And the power play was still somewhat sluggish.
Well, maybe it changes
kind of caught in its own decision to try and make the perfect play. And it just seems like that hasn't changed regardless of who's coaching the power play, who's behind the bench as the head coach, or the personnel that have been on the ice.
The power play is still having a rough go. We are in agreement there, for sure. Okay. And with that, folks, we're going to take a break. We want to thank you so much for tuning in to twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. When we come back on the other side, Arthur Staple from The Athletic will be joining us.
Customer service is the backbone of any great business, and reliable telecommunication is essential to keeping your client base happy. Introducing TIE Technology, a low-cost, flexible internet phone service founded on the idea that every customer deserves exceptional service while providing simple setup and management and easy integration to clients across the country. TIE Technology will not only create a custom solution tailored to your specific needs, but will partner with you to provide a competitive edge to you and your clients. And if you need support, you won't be routed to an automated call center in another country. You'll get a live representative that had a personal hand in building your account. So Islander fans, if your business is looking for a change from companies like Spectrum, Verizon, or Optimum, TIE Technology is offering 3 free months of service for any of its affordable packages. Just call 516-856-7800. That's 516-856-7800. Or visit them on the web at tietechnology.com. That's TIE, T-I-E technology.com. TIE Technology, the right choice for your internet phone service.
The only thing better than a great Long Island deli is a great Long Island deli run by die-hard Islander fans. Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington, will make any Islander fan feel right at home with its familiar blue and orange theme and Isles decor. Blue Line Deli and Bagels proudly serves Bagel Boss bagels, along with breakfast favorites, hockey-themed heroes, quesadillas, salads, fresh-made smoothies, and much more. So stop on in for delicious food, a clean atmosphere, and a happy staff ready to greet you with friendly service no matter what team you support. Want to place an order for pickup? Call 631-944-3222 or visit BlueLineDeli.com to check out the menu and order online. Blue Line Deli and Bagels, where the great selections will have you saying, yes, yes, yes.
Hope you enjoyed the ads. Now let's get back to Hockey Night in New York with Sean Cuthbert and Christian Arnold.
Well, when you have such great ads like that, it's hard not to enjoy them, Mr. Announcer Man. Welcome back to Hockey Night in New York. Christian Arnold with me. With me is Sean Cuthbert, as always. And, of course, it's that time of the show where we bring in a guest, friend of the show, on the line, brought to you by our friends over at Tide Technology. And with us on the line is Arthur Staple of The Athletic. Arthur, thank you so much for the time. How's it going?
I'm doing all right, guys. How are you?
Surviving?
I'm doing better than Sean. He's been a mess the last couple of days. But
mess is strong.
He's been a mess. But plenty to talk about, Arthur. And obviously, to start with, the Game 7 loss for the New York Islanders, a tough way to end the season there. And when you look back at that moment, Arthur, I kind of called it poetic in a way that the Islanders season would end on a mistake during the power play. How did you kind of view that whole situation playing out there with the Islanders giving up that shorthanded goal, which ended up being the game winner for Tampa Bay?
You know, just felt like that game, especially after the first period, it was going to be one little mistake or one breakdown either way, and that was really going to be the thing that decided it. You know, I feel like for the Islanders, I think part of the reason why they were so gutted at the end of it is they were able to overcome things like that time and time again this postseason. You know, it had a different feel than the 2020 playoff run. They were, you know, those first 3 rounds that they played last year in the bubble, they were pretty dominant against Florida and Washington, and for a lot of the series against Philly, even though it went to 7. So I feel like this run was a little different. They were kind of showing their identity a little bit more, rallying down, going into the third a couple of times, staving off, total onslaughts in Game 5 against Pittsburgh, and then Game 5 against Boston, and then, you know, uphill battle against Tampa just because of who they are. So I think they all felt like, okay, we had one breakdown, it's 1-0, but we're going to come back. We're going to get this tying goal. We're going to get it to overtime, or we're going to win it. And who could doubt them the way that they had played just 2 nights before at the Coliseum when they looked like they could have been dead at 2-0 down. So I think that kind of added to how worn, how spent, how emotional everybody was afterwards. I think that was probably, you know, it doesn't seem surprising academically, but when you see, you know, Josh Bailey just sort of staring off in the distance, that's as sad as I've ever seen him. And Matthew Barzal in tears talking about his veteran teammates. You know, it was emotional to watch and a little bit stunning, because this team has kind of held it together and been really stoic and kind of worked on the task at hand through 2 seasons, you know, 1 postseason and 1 full season through the pandemic, and did what they had to do and not really betrayed much emotion. And it was, it was hard to watch. And I think they really felt like they were going to pull it off, and they were the ones that believed all the way along when a lot of other people didn't.
Yeah, for sure, Arthur. It definitely gave a window into just, how much these guys care about each other and how much they play for each other out there. And, you know, you look at, a breakdown like this and having the game slip away like that in the fashion that it did. And, of course, there's a lot of hindsight. There's a lot of talking about, what the coaching staff could have done differently, who they could have put in. Obviously, Oliver Wahlstrom's name has come up a lot in the fan base. And, Barry Trotz addressed that in this post-game, or at least in his exit interview, talking about, basically defending why he made the decisions he did. And when you look back on this, do you think he made the right call, sticking with his veterans, sticking with a guy like Zajac in there, maybe holding Palmieri back off the first line a little more than people would have wanted? Or, would you have liked to seen Wally get in there to maybe try to add some scoring punch, especially after seeing the power play the way it went?
Yeah, to me, it's not even what he could do offensively. And obviously on the power play, you do love to have him. Although, when he was in against Pittsburgh, the book is out on Oliver Wahlstrom. He loves to shoot. They were really shading him kind of the way you see teams shade Alex Ovechkin when he's on. I mean, Wahlstrom is not an Ovechkin's class in the power play, but that was how Pittsburgh was treating him on the power play. So I think, the Islanders needed to draw up a little bit of a different game plan if he'd come back in. I think it's just more the fresh legs. I think it's hard to say there's any failings for this general manager and coach tandem, because they've done so much good in the last 3 years and really turned around this organization in a drastic way. But they do have the guys that they trust, and they tend to elevate those over the guys that they're a little bit more unsure about. And once Travis Zajac got in, and Travis Zajac did play really well again in Game 6, the game that he got against Pittsburgh. He played very well against Boston, but I think once Jean-Gabriel Pageau's injuries started to kind of overtake him, which looked like early in the Tampa series where Pageau just wasn't the same guy he'd been for 2 rounds, I think the caution kind of took over for the coaching staff, and they said, we need a guy like Zajac in there to be responsible, to kind of fill in the gaps if Pageau can't physically track guys down, if he can't be the low guy in the D zone. So I think they were more reluctant to make changes. And, ultimately, did it cost them? I'm not sure. I think, as Barry kind of pointed out, if they win that game 1-0 on a mistake by Tampa in Game 7 and they're playing in the Stanley Cup Finals, maybe people aren't asking those questions.
Absolutely.
And it's a valid point. It's something that, and I think Lou Lamoriello echoed it today, that you can lose when you play well enough to win, and you can win when you're not playing well enough, when you probably deserve to lose, even in the playoffs. And so you can't really let that change your thinking. And I think maybe if Barry's guilty of anything, it's allowing their success through a lot of the playoffs to alter his thinking, where when the playoffs started, it was not even a question that Oliver Wahlstrom was in there. And I thought Wahlstrom didn't just have an effect against Pittsburgh. He was doing the job. He was playing alongside Jean-Gabriel Pageau when they were out against Sidney Crosby's line. They did fine against them. I mean, Crosby's line dominated possession, but Wahlstrom didn't get panicky in his own end. He's clearly a very smart player. So I think maybe you just get a little bit guilty of drifting away with your veteran guys. And I thought really Zajac just didn't give them enough in that series. And maybe he was trying to think too defensively because that line didn't have any push because of Pageau's injuries. It's tough. You're not in the room. You can't really get a temperature, a feel for things these days with the COVID protocols and Zooms and things like that. So it's a little harder to get a read on it, what's going on behind the scenes. But I do know that Wahlstrom was healthy all the way through the Tampa series. And maybe if you'd stuck him in there, maybe in Game 6 or even a little bit earlier, maybe he makes a difference. Maybe he makes a mistake that leads to a goal. I don't know. It's right. Second guessing a situation where you lose by 1 puck in a Game 7 is hard to do.
We're talking with Arthur Staple from The Athletic Online, brought to you by our friends over at Tide Technology. Arthur, we're going to come back to Oliver Wahlstrom because he does factor back into the conversation when we get into what's going to happen during the offseason. But obviously, a lot of eyes now turning to the expansion draft and what's going to happen with the Islanders, which will be their first, I guess, perhaps telltale sign of what's to come with some of the offseason decisions there. Josh Bailey, Jordan Eberle, Nick Leddy, some of the names that have been looked at as possible players that will be left unprotected by the Islanders for the expansion draft. Do you have an idea of, or a thought, I should say, of who the Islanders end up losing there during the expansion draft?
I mean, if we're to take Lou at his word today, they haven't even made the decision about who's going on that protected list. So it'd be hard to project. I sort of feel like, based on their track record we haven't seen Lamoriello as the GM of the Islanders during an expansion draft yet. But based on his track record and Barry Trotz's track record, the simplest path is really the one that they tend to choose. There's certainly a debate to be made whether they want to leave Jordan Eberle unprotected to maybe try to tempt Seattle to take him over one of their defensemen that they're going to leave unprotected. But I think it's really just basically going to come down to a choice between Nick Leddy and Scott Mayfield. And I guess there's an option C, as I wrote about today, that they could leave one of those guys unprotected and then trade some assets to Seattle to get them to not take, whether it's Leddy or Mayfield, that they leave unprotected. I tend to think it would be Leddy, just because Mayfield's a no-brainer to be taken because his contract is so good, and his recent performance, especially in the playoffs, was excellent. So I don't think there'd be a question. Maybe with Leddy there's a question, although he might be the most talented, experienced defenseman that's available on almost any team if he's left unprotected. And with only 1 year left, you add in the thought that if Seattle is as bad as some traditional expansion teams, not Vegas obviously, but if they're stumble out of the gate their first year, they can just flip Leddy for a couple of assets at the trade deadline. So that makes him pretty attractive if he's left unprotected. Now then, Eberle, I suppose, is a question, but really leaving Eberle unprotected doesn't allow you to protect Leddy unless you go, 8 skaters and 1 goalie with that protection list. And I don't think that affords the Islanders a whole lot. That ends up leaving a few forwards unprotected besides Eberle that you don't want to lose. So I tend to think the simplest path is the one that they usually choose, and it's probably a coin flip between Letty and Mayfield. To me, Letty's the obvious guy, and if you lose him, I think a lot of fans feel like he's had a subpar year and a subpar postseason, which may be true, but he's still a guy who plays 20 minutes a night, and he's still a guy who can provide some offense, especially on the power play, where he led the team's defenseman with 30 points in the regular season. So that's still a hole to fill, and you still don't have a lot of cap space to do it. So these next couple of weeks, whatever they decide, whatever they negotiate, if there's a side deal in place where Lou has to give up, maybe one of those extra second round picks next year and a young prospect, a Robin Salo maybe to get Seattle to take someone that's kind of a throwaway pick, kind of along the lines what the Islanders did with the Vegas expansion draft, where they gave up an awful lot and to get Vegas to take Mikhail Grabowski's contract. Maybe there's something like that in place, and then Lou kind of kicks it down the road a little bit to figure out who they can bring back and what the cap situation is going to be. But these next couple of weeks will be interesting as far as the expansion draft goes.
Yeah, for sure. This is going to be one of the more fascinating summers for the Islanders, I think, just with everything going on. But to pivot to free agency here, one guy who I was convinced before the season started was going to see his final days as an Islander was Casey Cizikas. And it just seems like throughout the year, and especially reading your pieces and whatnot, just seeing how much value this team puts on his play, and rightfully so. And it sounds to me now, and especially reading your piece today, that it looks like they're really going to give it a shot to bring him back. And you talked about maybe a more extended deal, maybe 6 years at about 2.5. Do you think that's something they're really going to shoot for? And does it seem like, more chance than not that he's going to stick around than head elsewhere?
I really feel like it's a similar situation to Matt Martin. I think he can certainly get to the open market, and I don't think if you're in Cizikas' shoes, I can't imagine that his agent, who's Pat Morris from Newport Sports, who also coincidentally represents his two line mates on the identity line. So he was Morris was in the same situation with Matt Martin last year. Matt Martin went to that first day of free agency last fall. He heard from a bunch of teams, and I think he just said, you know what? I left this team once. I don't want to do it again. Let's see if we can work something out. And that deal stayed in the drawer pretty much the entire offseason until the Islanders had sorted out their cap situation. And then it was announced it was 4 years, which is probably a lot longer than you'd give Matt Martin if you were thinking objectively. But 1.5 million, average annual value, not so bad. You can kind of bury most of that in the minors, and a bit of a drop off from what Matt had made on his previous contract. So I think Cizikas has a little more value around the league, and to the Islanders, being that he's a center, he's a little bit younger, kills penalties, very versatile guy, always with that high motor. So I don't think you're going to get a huge discount on the money, but you have to give him something, and I would assume that the commodity for this situation is term, much like it was for Matt Martin. So Cizikas, this year was the first time he played a full season in a few years, even though it was a shortened year. So that health situation is probably good for him. And it's also tough for the Islanders because I think it maybe convinces some other teams that could use a guy like Casey Cizikas that if he gets to the open market, he's worth overpaying for. So, if he could get something like 4 years and $4 million per from a team like the Oilers or the Wild or even the Leafs, his hometown team, because they need a guy like him to become a little bit of a heavier team when they get to the postseason. Maybe that changes the calculus, but if he tells Lou Lamoriello and tells his own agent before we get to that point, I want to stay an Islander, let's figure it out. 6 years, 2.5, 2.75, it's an overpay in terms of term. He'd be 36 when that contract ended. And I don't think Casey Cizikas, the way that he plays, is going to be an effective 36-year-old NHLer. But you have to overpay some way, and the Islanders just can't afford to overpay against the cap in terms of dollars. So that's the way you make it work. And I think if it goes the way that's one projection that on the first day of free agency, there's a lot of teams talking about how they'd love to sign Casey Cizikas, and then it goes completely quiet because this is Lou Lamoriello's team and nobody talks about anything. Then you'll know that deal is in the drawer somewhere, and it's going to come out in late August or early September when they've sorted through all the rest of their cap situation, and that Casey Cizikas will be an Islander for the rest of his career.
Arthur, obviously we haven't been in the room all season, and it's tough to gauge this, but do you get the sense, considering how close that line is and those guys are, that Casey is looking at the situation that happened with Matt and how he left, like you said, he left the organization and things didn't necessarily go the way he thought it would when he went to Toronto. Does Casey take any? Do you think Casey takes any of that into consideration when he's thinking about what his next move is going to be?
Yeah, I'm sure that plays into it, and the world has become such a different place in the last 15 months. And it's got to be true for professional athletes. And obviously, from a strictly business standpoint, there's less money to go around because the cap is flat now, and it'll be flat for another couple of years. Veteran guys like Cizikas might get squeezed a little bit. It's probably more for guys that are a little bit lower on the totem pole in terms of heading into free agency. I think he could still get paid. But it's also less, if he's getting offers that are front loaded or shorter term, escrow is a lot higher now too. So you're not really getting a lot more actual dollars. And then there's the thought of picking up his family and moving somewhere else. I think comfort and familiarity has become something that's more of a commodity now for players than it was before. I don't think a lot of agents and the Players Association would love to hear that, because they want they want their clients and their players to get the most money they can out of free agency. That's just the nature of the beast. But in thinking this environment, if you can get security, and obviously a longer term deal is plenty of security, I think there's going to be guys that opt for that. I think we just saw it today with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins taking an 8-year deal at about $5 million per from the Oilers. He could have gotten a bigger salary number than that on the open market. He's a talented guy. He's been playing in the shadow of McDavid and Draisaitl, and they haven't really won a lot. He could have rolled the dice a little bit. He wanted to stay. They made it work. So I think you're going to see a lot more of those deals as we approach free agency and maybe into free agency, where guys are thinking about the unknown, but probably preferring the known. And for a guy like Cizikas, who is all heart and all emotion, I think the familiarity of being here and staying here might win out in the end.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, Arthur. And one question I wanted to ask you, and you also touched on this a bit on your piece today, is the thought of a buyout. Do you think we see a buyout with the New York Islanders, in this offseason, with how far up they are against the cap?
The fact that the buyout window kind of opened so quickly, it might be tough to see right away. I don't know if Lou Lamoriello and the rest of the front office will be able to identify so quickly that they'll be able to move on from certain guys. I mean, the obvious buyout candidates to the outside world are guys like Andrew Ladd, who has 2 years left, but he, most of his money is due in signing bonuses, which kind of precludes any benefit to a buyout. I think they only save maybe $600,000 or so against the cap. It's not really worth it for them. The other guys that you'd think of are guys like Leo Komarov, who's got a year left, Thomas Hickey, who's got a year left. They'd get a decent amount of savings, about $1.67 million each on those next year against the cap, and any amount like over $1 million is a huge help to Lou Lamoriello and what he's trying to do. But I'm just not sure that they feel comfortable yet buying out guys. Thomas Hickey has been through so much these last couple of years, injuries, the death of his brother, finally getting back into a couple of games, but really just didn't seem like Barry Trotz is really that high on him, even though he was the guy that, made the team out of camp in Trotz's first year in 2018-19. So, it's still tough to let go of a guy who's a good depth defenseman who's played in the NHL for a long time. If some of these other dominoes fall, like leaving Leddy exposed, letting him go, Andy Green may decide to come back, but there's still a pretty big hole on that left side if Leddy leaves, and maybe a guy like Hickey is someone you want around just for insurance. I don't know that the Islanders can ever pull off what they did this year with, outside of Noah Dobson's 8-game absence due to COVID. Nobody missed a game due to injury on the D, then or in the playoffs, which is pretty much unprecedented in the NHL. You can think back just a few years when Garth Snow was signing guys off the street to play D about a decade ago to fill out the roster at the end of the season. So it just doesn't happen. But Komarov is probably maybe, the more likely buyout candidate. Save them some money, but also, it's Uncle Leo. It's a guy the fans don't have a lot of love for, but the team certainly does. And he, whatever his limited abilities are, he gives all of it. And I think in the playoffs, even though he was more in the way than being productive on Matthew Barzal's line, it didn't seem to hurt Matthew Barzal too much, who had, probably his best postseason as an NHLer. So, there's a lot of decisions I think that they feel like they could make quickly in this process because the buyout window opens right after the finals end. But will they be able to make them confidently without knowing what the other moves are? I'm not so sure.
For sure, Arthur. And what you just touched on actually is what I wanted to follow up with. I mean, does it kind of maybe go beyond just insurance when it comes to the reluctance to buy a guy like Hickey or Leo out just because of how beloved these guys are in the locker room? And you look at the way that the Islanders have kept Johnny Boychuk around the team, and Lamoriello was singing his praises today, saying that he's just been tremendous, with that team and being involved with them, even though he's not in the ice anymore. Do you think that's maybe a reason why, Lou takes a step back and says, you know what, we could use this money, but we could also use this guy in the room?
I mean, I think at this point, the cap space has to take precedence. And I think even Lou understands, Lou he does appreciate the specialness of this group, but also, he can be as cold-blooded as anybody when it comes to making those kinds of decisions. You don't last as long as he has without having to, having an unbiased view of what you need to do. And I think Leo was on waivers a couple times this year. He wasn't a regular in the lineup before Anders Lee got hurt. So I think you have to look at the bigger picture, and obviously it was an emotional journey, and he was a part of it. He didn't contribute a ton on the ice, but I'm sure behind the scenes he was as involved as anybody because he's a well-liked guy. And Hickey is as well-liked a teammate and a person, I think, as any Islander that's been around in the last 10 years. He's just a salt-of-the-earth person and someone that you would always want to be around, whether as a mentor to some of the younger guys or just a good teammate or whatever. So there's definitely that part of it that you don't want to let go of certain guys. But I think, I think hearing Lou today express regret yet again for trading Devon Toews last offseason, which was really, I think he felt the only move that he could make. I think you prefer not to let go of guys that are going to be, good to great players in the league versus guys that are beloved.
Talking with Arthur Staple from The Athletic here on the line, brought to you by our friends over at Tight Technology. Arthur, I did want to circle back to Oliver Wahlstrom now that we went through some of the scenarios with the expansion draft, with free agency, and how does all of this play into his future with the organization and where his role will be next year with the Islanders come the 2021-22 season?
I can't see a scenario where this guy isn't, a regular in the top six. I mean, maybe technically he'll be he could end up back where he was before if there's no changes to the top six, which is on Jean-Gabriel Pageau's right side. But he's going to be a regular, and he's going to be an impact guy, and he's going to be the guy that they look to say, our power play has been so-so to lousy in that range for Barry Trotz's entire coaching tenure, and this is the guy that's going to get us out of it. I think, the steps forward that he took when he got into the lineup this year, not just as a scorer, and I think the way that he plays really complements the rest of this team, because there's a lot of guys that are looking for quality over quantity on this roster, right? I think maddening effect. Some guys who fans feel like overpass too much or are not always attacking the net. Oliver Wahlstrom is only thinking about one thing, and that's scoring goals. And I think that was kind of the label that was hung on him early on, and I think it's certainly true. He is an aggressive guy, and he loves to score goals, and he loves to shoot the puck. But I think the other parts of his game really took some people by surprise, and maybe even Barry Trotz by surprise. He doesn't get panicky in his own end. He makes the simple play, chipping pucks out. He uses his size really well. I think he's earned a lot of trust, and I think whatever happened in the playoffs, maybe like we were talking about before, maybe you just fell a little bit out of the trust circle with Wahlstrom because of Travis Zajac being in there and Pageau being hurt. But from day one, his name is in ink in that top 9 and on that first power play unit. To me, he's going to have an impact on this team next season and for a long time afterwards. And we're gonna end up probably asking Barry at some point next season, are you sure you still feel good about your decision not to play this guy in the Tampa series? Because he is an impact player, and I think he showed it this season.
Arthur Staple from The Athletic. You've been more than generous with your time here on the line, brought to you by our friends over at Tide Technology. Arthur, we want to thank you for coming on tonight and for coming on all across this season. We really do appreciate your time and your insight, and it's always great chatting with you.
100%.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks
Appreciate
so much, Arthur. Take care.
Arthur Staple again from The Athletic on our On the Line segment brought to you by Ty Technology. Interesting, though, Arthur mentions the going back and looking back at the Wallstrom decision. I feel like that's going to be the Anders Lee not playing in Game 7 in 2015 against the Capitals.
Wow,
I think that's going to be
history repeating itself.
I think that's going to be what this turns out to be.
Yeah, well, look, if it is,
which I still think Anders Lee not playing in that series was not the end-all, be-all in that Game 7, but that's neither here nor there.
Right. And not to revisit that, but there was a lot of unknowns back then too. Right. We didn't know how good Lee was going to be back then.
But the point being is it is funny how kind of history does repeat itself in the situations that the Islanders find themselves in. This was a much bigger Game 7 than that Capitals series was.
Yeah, and as much as people might be like, see, Barry, it would be a good thing if it does force people to ask that question, what were you thinking, if he does have a breakout year next year. And he's, honestly, if they want to get back, if they want to get to the finals next year, he's going to have to be that guy. He's going to have to develop into the player that everybody hopes that he's going to be.
100%.
Especially with all this unknown that we started talking about with Arthur. And maybe we can just kind of pick it up there and talk about, just who may or may not stay. I was telling you before the show, I was messing around with Cap Friendly over the last day or so and just seeing what this team can do to keep guys. And look, I do not think this is going to happen because there's a million ifs that would be involved. But there, funny enough, there is a path for them to keep almost everyone intact except for like one guy. And I guess you would just choose between Jordan Eberle or Nick Leddy. Like if they can find a way to unload it all. Look, the key is Andrew Ladd. Something has to happen with Andrew Ladd. Look, Lou said he's healthy. So LTIR doesn't sound great right now,
on the table.
unless something happens over the summer. But as of right now, the guy's healthy, so LTIR doesn't sound like an option at the moment. Maybe something happens in camp. I don't know. But if you can't go,
stubs his toe on the ice.
Just saying. Look, we've seen stuff like this happen in the past.
The bus ride to Bridgeport for a preseason game.
Any number of scenarios.
Trips off the bus.
Literally. Yeah, any number of scenarios. He chips his tooth biting into a slice of pizza Borelli's. Who knows? I mean, anything can happen.
No, he'd go to R.J. Daniels for a nice burger or something.
That's the first place, for sure. And he wouldn't chip his tooth there. No. But anyway,
Mikey might try and trip him.
Definitely. He's the key, though. Andrew Ladd is the key to this team really holding on to as many guys as possible. So, maybe you have a conversation with him, be like, listen, man, you're not getting in there anyway. Retire, please, and we'll give you a nice, cushy job with the organization. I know I'm going a little pie in the sky here.
You are going very pie in the sky.
But look, crazier things have happened with guys. You can't not at least consider the idea that something like that can happen. Not for nothing. We didn't know Johnny Boychuk was going to retire last summer. We knew he had an eye injury, but we didn't know he was going to hang up the skates. And
but I think
he was the guy we were talking about last summer in his contract.
But I think that was a very different situation. I think knowing
Johnny, the guy had a major injury,
but knowing Johnny Boychuk's personality too, if he was able to play, he would be playing. There's no question about it. It wasn't as though he was talked out of playing and saying this or that or some sort of But that was a situation where he was genuinely hurt, and it kind of worked out for them.
I'm certainly not saying he wasn't.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying not.
But he was also in a position where he could still play on the Islanders NHL team. Whereas it seems like, Andrew Ladd is not going to play for the Islanders anymore.
Exactly.
Whether he's still on the books or not, he's not playing anymore. So he's got to make it. Look, he's got a lot of money coming to him. So when you put yourself in his shoes, why would I retire? Because I'm collecting this money no matter what. So I'll ride the bus with the Bridgeport Islanders for another year or two if I have to, because he knows he's buyout proof. So that's not going to happen, as Arthur put out there. 667. That does nothing. You actually save more if you just put him in Bridgeport each year. So he's definitely not getting bought out. So he's the key. And now if they have to hang on to his contract, then I think because of how Lou is talking about Palmieri, I almost feel like not only is Leddy out the door, but then Jordan Eberle's out the door, because there's no other way to make room for Kyle Palmieri. The only way to have Palmieri and Eberle on the same team is if Andrew Ladd goes.
Right.
That's the only way that's possible.
But it's how we get to that point is going to be interesting to see. Because,
you got to buy out Leo. You got to buy out Hickey.
It's one thing to put it into a computer system. Yeah.
You got to get a team-friendly contract from Pelech and Bo and Sorokin, and which is possible. doing the numbers, you can get within that realm that's reasonable. I mean, look, who knows what the length of these contracts are going to be, what the years are going to be. But, like, you can look at these guys and say, okay, Ryan Pulock has got $5 million for his raise. Maybe Pelech gets around $5 million. It wouldn't be out of the question to be somewhere between 4.5 to 5.5.
Considering they play on the same line, their styles are somewhat similar, and their roles are somewhat similar. I guess you could say.
You can make the argument that Pulock puts up more points, and usually there's a lot of emphasis on that.
Right. So, I mean, that would make sense as to using that as the litmus test for his new contract potentially. But, I mean, that's not out of the question either. I mean, I think this is a group that you saw in those post-game press conferences, you saw in the exit interview press conference that this is a group that is confident in one another and confident that they can get back there if they're given that chance. And it wouldn't surprise me if Pelech or Cizikas or someone takes a little bit more of a team-friendly contract, knowing that it gives the team a better opportunity. Anthony Beauvillier, it gives the team the opportunity to come back with essentially the same core minus one or two guys and give them another go at that Stanley Cup final.
When you look at the amount of guys that they do have to sign, whether it's Bo, Cizikas, Sorokin, Pelech, each one of those guys says, you know what, for the greater good, I'll lop off a $500,000 for maybe what I'm worth. And then all of a sudden you're working with $2.5 million where you can put that towards wherever you need to put it.
Yeah.
And who knows whether it's $750,000 to bring Andy Green back to have his veteran presence. Right. I mean, I can't see them giving him more than league minimum at 38, 39 years old. He's getting $2 million in bonuses already that's going against the cap. So I'd like to think if he wants to stay, he's going to come back at league minimum. But my point is while it is a very, slim chance, there is a path to getting a lot of these guys back, but
there's a path that we win the lottery too. But
I don't know. I think the odds of this are a little bit better, but
probably.
But yeah.
But I know I'm being glib, but I know exactly what you mean. You're right. There is a chance this is a group that is very unique, and I feel like it's very different from the rest of the National
And you make a
Hockey
good
League.
point with how tight they are. And you've seen other teams do this, where they take a little bit of a hometown discount for the greater good to keep the guys together. So I don't know if it necessarily has to be this complete dismantling of this squad. And with the way Barry and Lou were talking, and with the way Arthur even said, they're going to do what's the simplest thing and what's going to keep this team together as much as possible. So I think they really will try to explore as many avenues as possible. But again, the real linchpin in this is Andrew Ladd. And that's when you're going to see a lot of change. And that's where Oliver Wahlstrom is guaranteed to be a top six player. Because once Eberle goes, welcome to the top six.
Yeah.
There it is.
And he's earned it too. It's not just
he wouldn't be out of place.
That spot, yeah.
But you'd love to still have that depth. Him and Pajot on the third line.
Well, the other interesting thing too in all of this is whatever happens to Kiefer Bellows and this circumstance.
He's a guy who may get his window if all this stuff doesn't go according to this very particular plan that I have. Yeah, then all of a sudden he gets a phone call and says, "Hey, look."
Well, good thing you're the GM of the team.
Yeah. Well, it's probably better off that I'm not. But look,
you'd be on Cap Friendly trying to figure this out,
right? Well, I was. That's the thing. But everybody was. That's what everybody. I mean, that's part of the fun, But it's gonna. I said it, with Arthur. It's gonna be fascinating to see how all this stuff plays out when you have an expansion draft coming in there. I mean, you can literally protect all your quote unquote main forwards.
Yeah. And
then just expose Leddy because Arthur talks about the Leddy versus Mayfield argument. I mean, look, you got I'm a fan of Leddy, even though I wasn't too thrilled with the way he played in these playoffs, particularly in Game 7. But I'm a fan of Nick Leddy, and I do value a lot of the stuff that he brings to the table. But if it comes down to him versus Mayfield, you look at the contract, you look at the age.
Right.
I think it's just, that's
the upside is there more for Mayfield to stay than Leddy at this point in their careers.
But the funny thing is, even if they expose Leddy or Eberle, there's no guarantee that Seattle's going to take him.
I mean, I think,
and then you may have to deal with one of these guys.
I think odds are they would take Leddy.
Yeah, well, we'll see because it's not that far away. I mean, we got
less than a month.
And you got the expansion draft, the entry draft, and then I think a week after that, or maybe like 5 days after the entry draft, you got free agency. So
it's gonna be chaotic.
Yeah, we have less than a month to exhale on this run that they went on, and then we're back at it, looking at all these ins, outs, and what have yous.
And then UBS Arena.
UBS, baby. Can't wait. The Palace.
Well, you have to wait till November.
Well, I don't have a choice.
Right.
But I'd rather not.
Well,
but I have to, so I will.
You have to wait.
Yeah, and it was a little disheartening to hear that whole situation is a little fluid. There is no hard date.
Well, I
So
mean,
it
I
could
think
go a little longer than we thought. Maybe
you're dealing with construction and you're dealing with the state of New York. So I think the fact that they're even on track and for November is a pretty impressive feat for how quickly that building has gone up and all the intricacies of that project that's been going on at Belmont Park. And credit to the Islanders and to the construction people and everything that's been going on there. Obviously, the Islanders will start on the road next season, basically confirmed by Lou Lamoriello, after I think Barry Trotz had mentioned it as well on Sunday in his exit interview with the media. And basically, we're going to see what we saw with Rangers, which is they had a very, very long road trip to start their season in, what was that, 2014, 2015? I forget what
you're
it
in the
was.
ballpark.
But it'll be the same situation with the Islanders. They'll have to start their season on the road. Preseason will be up in Bridgeport, so they'll be on the road a lot. They'll be living at hotels a lot, and they'll be needing to find a way to groom on the go. And I think there's no better product. There's no better people. There's no better company than Manscaped. For grooming on the go, whether it's up here, whether it's down there. You don't want to be hairy where you can't. And it's a Lou Lamoriello run team, so you can't be hairy. You got to be well-groomed everywhere.
And now everybody's shaving their playoff beards because, unfortunately, playoffs are over.
Playoffs are done. So playoff beards up here gone. Playoff beards anywhere else.
Sure.
They are gone. And the best products to get rid of those playoff beards now that everyone's shaving is, of course, the Lawnmower 4.0 and the Weed Whacker, which helps you trim up here. And I know, Shawnee, you tried it. We had the opportunity to get one of these, and you got to enjoy it. And you're looking sharp, my friend.
I appreciate that. You get to 39 years young, and
you're looking great.
I appreciate that. I do appreciate that.
You don't look a day over 25.
Thank you so much. You're so right. But yeah, you start getting hairs in places you don't want, and the Weed Whacker, you can bring it in the shower. It's very convenient, and you just take care of business. And then all of a sudden, you trim 5 years off your life because there's not trees sprouting out of your nose. So it's great.
That's right. It makes life so much easier. And, of course, the Lawnmower 4.0, well, that's just a fantastic product as well. The upgraded trimmer includes multifunction on and off switch that can engage a travel lock, which is great whether you're on the go traveling as a player or whether you're traveling to cover the team. It also has the ability to turn on the 400K LED spotlight on and off when you need
trim the dark.
Precise shave. So if you want to trim in the dark,
want to save energy at home.
It's a little weird,
but you can trim in the dark.
If you want to do that, you can trim in the dark. So go get the Lawnmower 4.0. Go get the Weed Whacker over at manscaped.com. Use the promo code HockeyNightNY right there. Get 20% off and free shipping. That's a great deal. What a time to jump on the Manscaped bandwagon, to shave up here, to shave here, shave down there. Hockey Night NY is the promo code at manscaped.com. 20% off.
You should have drew up a diagram. Instead of just pointing to your face, you could have referenced a diagram back here. Up here, down here. Yeah, great stuff, buddy. Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can trim in the dark and in the shower at the same time. So you can really risk your life.
If that's what you're doing, grooming. I have a lot of questions as to why you're trimming in the shower and why are you showering in the dark in the first place. That's a lot of
It's none of my business, questions. But if that's what you want to do, you can do it. Use the promo code HockeyNightNY at manscaped.com for 20% off not only the Lawnmower, not only the Weed Whacker, but all products on the site.
And they have a lot of great products there, so check them out.
Yes.
Tremendous sponsor of the program. We want to thank them for their support as well all season long since they jumped on since the playoffs started. Actually.
Absolutely. And time is getting thin. So why don't we jump right in to the hero of the week? How does that sound to you?
That sounds delicious because I'm starving.
All right. There's the music. Ladies and gentlemen, when you hear this song, that means it's time for the hero of the week, sponsored by the Blue Line Deli, half-price hero. And this week it is the Hockey Night in New York, featuring grilled chicken, buffalo sauce, mozzarella cheese, avocado in a wrap. It is delicious.
It is.
Get it for half price all week, starting tomorrow. That is Wednesday through next episode, which will be Monday or Tuesday, so you got about a week where we'll announce a brand new half-off hero. Stop in and mention Hockey Night in New York for half off the Hockey Night in New York. Big thanks to Blue Line Deli and Bagels for sponsoring us. As always, we love you, Donnie. We love you, Steph. You guys are fantastic.
Yes.
So, Christian, it is now time
turning the music up as you talk.
I accidentally did that. It's time to press buttons. It's time to tell people who the hero is. And yes, it was a disappointing end to the series, to the season, but there still were heroes this week. So why don't we go with it? Go ahead.
My hero of the week is Sean Cuthbert.
Oh!
Just kidding. It's not.
Damn.
It's not.
Wait, let's press the button.
It's
yeah,
Anthony
you're lying.
Beauvillier.
It wasn't me.
I
Damn
know.
it.
Sorry.
Damn it. It really wasn't me.
I gotcha. Anthony
cold,
Beauvillier
bro.
for being the hero in Game 6, scoring the game-winning goal, sending Nassau Coliseum into absolute jubilation and giving the building its proper send-off because that was the final game at the Old Barn at 1255 Hempstead Turnpike in Uniondale, New York. It couldn't have had a better send-off other than getting a couple of Stanley Cup final games. But I mean, as far as send-offs went and as far as the way things could have gone, that was probably as good as it gets for Islander fans to really enjoy one last jubilant.
Yes.
Jubilant.
You got it.
Moment at the Nassau Coliseum.
Yes, it was. It was. I was there, and I was elated, to say the least.
Yes, I saw you were dancing outside the building again.
There was some dancing going on. People just, you know what? Everybody's got a camera in their pocket now, and it just, you know.
You liked it.
I mean, I wasn't shying away from it. I mean, I enjoyed it in the moment. I enjoyed that other people enjoyed it, so that's great. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was great. It was great to see the Force to Game 7. And, you know, just so you guys know, he's also my hero of the week, Anthony Beauvillier, because of everything Christian just said.
Yep.
But, yeah, I mean, look, if you can't close the Collie out with a Stanley Cup win, at least you close it out with a very dramatic overtime winner from Anthony Beauvillier. They went out with a win. It's a memorable one.
Yep.
That's something people are always going to look back on. And the game before, Ryan Pulock with the huge save.
Two big moments. Two moments that'll definitely stand the test of time when it comes to Islander history.
We'll all be able to look back fondly on how the building was closed for the New York Islanders. Yes. And now the Riptide are going to take over. The Riptide. That's right. Indoor lacrosse is coming back to Long Island.
I'm sure it'll be just
It might already be there. I don't know. Have they been playing
they
already?
No, they haven't started it.
Oh, okay. I have no idea. Okay.
They'll be there. Well, I don't know why you're making fun of the Riptide. They're very...
Am I making fun of them?
You seem
I'm
like
just
you're making
having fun with them. I'm not making fun of them.
I don't know.
I wish them all the best. Look, lacrosse is huge here on Long Island, so they're going to do well. I supported the Saints. By supported, I don't mean I went to games or watched, but I wanted them to do well.
I actually did go to New York Saints games when I was a kid.
Yeah. And then there's another thing that happened this playoff, the New York Saints thing and everything like that. A lot of fun. It was a fun ride. It just ended a little too short. It was a fun ride.
Absolutely, Shawnee. But we're getting close to 9 o'clock, and
we're going to have to wrap up.
We have to wrap up. I want to say it's been a lot of fun. I know we have another show coming up.
Yeah, so guys, there's a lot of stuff we still could have covered. This is kind of like part one of a two-parter here. You know, we're going to come back next week. Andrew Gross is going to join us from Newsday. Tentatively, more than likely. We'll hedge our bets a little bit here.
That.
Yes, we do, but it looks
so
like
nobody
he's
tells him
join
we
us.
said it on the air yet.
Yeah. Just pretend like we didn't say anything.
Yeah.
But we're gonna pick this up. We're gonna talk about
looking at you, T-Boyle.
Some
Keep
more,
your mouth shut.
Some more of the off-season stuff. And, just what's going to happen with this team, maybe reflect a little bit on the season more as a whole, not just it's fine. Now. It's fine. Nobody noticed. Nobody's paying attention to you anyway. So come back all summer. Joey Pickles, we're going to try our best. Look, when there's news, we're going to be involved. Obviously, we're going to do coverage for the expansion draft, the entry draft, free agency. And if there's any big news, we will be right here. But, it may come, July, August. There might be a week or two here and there off, but we'll be around. Don't worry. We'll be on the Twitter and all that. So I think we're going to end it here. We'll take your questions next week. Unfortunately, we kind of got to jump out of here at 9 o'clock. But, folks, as always, I want to thank you all for tuning in here at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. A huge thanks to Arthur Staple of The Athletic for joining us. He gave us a fantastic spot tonight, a little extra time. That was great. And, of course, a huge thanks to our sponsors, Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington. Head on over for great food, great service, and great people. Check out the menu at BlueLineDeli.com for their great selections and hockey-themed heroes. And, of course, a huge thanks to Ty Technology, a voice-over IP company providing phone services for businesses across the country. Check them out at TyTechnology.com for all your telecom needs, or give them a call at 516-856-7800 and get 3 free months of service. And a huge thanks to Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with promo code HockeyNightNY at Manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at Manscaped.com. Use promo code HockeyNightNY. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. And, of course, a huge thanks to everybody out there who's listening on the podcasts. And if you want to follow us on social media, follow Christian on Twitter at C_Arnold01. Follow myself at Shawnee Hockey. Follow the show at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And of course, check out HockeyNightNY.com. You can check out our merch. Get 10% off with promo code HNINY10. What do you got?
I was going to say, I just realized I was wearing a green shirt, and I forgot about the green screen. That could have been really bad.
It could have been, but it was a
Or
dark
really
enough green
hilarious.
where it wasn't it would have been hilarious, but it would have been funny to see your head just floating around.
Yeah,
Maybe next time.
maybe next time.
Well, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. We will be back next week. Thank you and have a great night.
Bye.
Doopy doopy doo. Doo doopy doo. Doopy doopy dappa doopy dap doopy doo.
Did you accidentally put Sparky there, or is he meant to be there?
He's meant to be there.
Oh, okay.
He's hanging out with us.